on the Big 89 WLS. I want to say good morning and hi to John Guerin, who often listens. The architect of the Big 89's music power.
Yeah.
And the lineup was just wall-to-wall Hall of Famers. And Guerin looks great. John's 147.
Is he?
He looks fantastic.
147.
John used to babysit Marconi. That's a radio joke. Hey,
That's funny.
Nick Digilio's here.
You're
One of the
funny.
podcasts he does is a Saturday Night Live podcast, and it's just coincidental, of course, but OJ leaving yesterday makes you want to have Norm Macdonald around even a little bit more.
Testimony during the final week provided some spellbinding moments. In a brilliant move during closing arguments, Simpson attorney Johnny Cochran put on the knit cap prosecutors say O.J. wore the night he committed the murder. Although O.J. may have hurt his case when he suddenly blurted out, hey, easy with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat.
Such guy. That may be my favorite. Hi, buddy.
How are you, man?
All right. What is the story with the SNL podcast?
By the way, I do want to plug your SNL podcast where you were my guest a couple of weeks ago on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I asked you to pick sort of your favorite moments and your favorite sketches. And if you remember, you specifically said Norm doing the OJ jokes. And so if you go back and listen to the podcast that you were on That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, my SNL podcast, we play I play like about 2.5 minutes straight of him just ripping OJ. It's
tremendous.
It's genius. It's great.
And he was actually fired for it. Don Ohlmeyer, who was a sports producer at NBC, who briefly took over Saturday Night Live when Lorne Michaels thought he'd had enough and was leaving. Ohlmeyer was best friends with OJ.
Yeah.
And threatened Norm Macdonald's job and everybody associated with Norm. Ended up firing Norm, and I think the head writer at the time, right?
Yeah, and then they fired him. Well, first they fired him from Weekend Update. He was still on the show. But barely.
But he was demoted to like a 12:50 spot.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And you remember who took over for Norm?
I do not.
The worst anchor in Update history.
Is it Colin?
Colin Quinn. The worst anchor and a great stand-up. Great stand-up.
Very funny, but
Terrible
he was
anchor?
terrible.
An awful.
I love Colin
He's
Quinn.
the worst anchor in the
You go
history
back
of
and
SNL.
watch the
I
clips.
like him. Okay.
He's a funny guy, but he's not. You have to. There's a
That wasn't for
specific
him.
talent you need to do
And there's
Update,
a
and he
rhythm
does not
of
have it.
reading
That's right.
jokes
He does not
like
have
a
it.
newsman. Yeah.
But anyway, that on your episode, it
and
was
what's
great.
your SNL this week?
This week is surprise celebrity cameos.
Okay.
It's all about
good.
That's fun.
and it was all that was sort of initiated by a few weeks ago when Scarlett Johansson showed up and did that insane Republican response to the State of the Union.
Well, and they had just last week, I believe, if my timing is correct, they had about 5 celebrity cameos.
Yeah, I mean,
walk out.
because Kristen Wiig hosted, she hit the Five Timers Club, and it was
And
all
John Rahm.
dudes.
John Rahm. John Hamm. I'm watching
John
golf.
Hamm and Fred Armisen and Ryan
Martin
Gosling,
Short.
who hosts tomorrow.
John Rahm.
John
Rahm.
Rahm.
Famous
Rahm
golfer.
Emanuel was there. They did an Arby's sketch. They did an Arby's sketch, actually.
Ramen noodles.
And Ramalama Ding Dong.
Huey Lewis. No. But yeah, but this episode, it goes back to like when Barbara showed up on Coffee Talk years ago. And that was not only Barbara was in that sketch, Madonna's in that sketch too.
Yeah,
But
that's
she
right.
wasn't.
She's sitting in this. She's one of the women.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It's
funny.
it's Mike Myers, it's Madonna, and it's Roseanne. Roseanne Barr was the host that night. And then Madonna just showed
before
up.
she lost
And
her
then
mind,
Madonna
right?
just showed up.
And Madonna was in the sketch because Madonna loved Mike Myers. They were buddies. And then they didn't even know this, but then Barbara walks onto the set. So that's in there. And then other
good.
surprise cameos.
Well,
Do you
don't
ever think you'd be looking back and go, God, I missed the 90s when Roseanne wasn't crazy?
That, by the way, was the episode that she hosted with Tom Arnold. So there was a lot of drugs going on at that point.
Yeah.
Don't you think celebrities nowadays, they do these surprises because it is a thing and it gains them some more clicks
I think
and
it's great.
popularity? I know.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
think it's amazing when they have celebrity.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a
walk-ons.
lot of times it coincides with they just happen to have a movie opening,
Yeah,
that
okay.
week and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's cool. And especially when it's Five Timers Club, it's the people who come in who have hosted 5 times. And the joke was that everybody who came back didn't host 5 times, and they were all getting a jacket instead of Kristen Wiig. That was the joke.
She, of course, is on a streaming show on Apple Plus, I think, right?
what-
Apple
it's like
TV
a
Plus.
Palm
Royale
Oh my
was great cast,
Terrible show.
but not a good show.
Terrible show.
All right, this week for your regular show.
My regular show,
you
the
know,
Nick D
American
Podcast.
Society of Podcasters insists that all Americans have a podcast.
They do.
Nick is so good he has 2.
I have 2.
Yes.
I have 2. Well, one is called the Nick D Podcast. It's an interview and review podcast with my co-host Esmeralda Leon. It drops every Tuesday and Wednesday. It's at the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. The Nick D Podcast, you can get it everywhere. This week, Nell Minow joins me. She is an incredible movie reviewer and a person who's big in the finance world and the politics world. And she's taken down a lot of people, including Vince McMahon. Took him down a few years ago. So I have her on to talk about the latest movies because she's the movie mom.
That's right. That's right.
She's the movie mom. She's amazing. And so she's the guest. And Esmeralda and I also talk about, remember the glory days of Andy Frayne security and Andy Frayne ushers?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Wrigley Field and wherever.
Yeah, I miss those guys. I miss them. Like I remember going to concerts in the 70s and, like you would pass a joint to the Andy Frayne guy. He was supposed to be working. He was wearing his uniform and he had his hat on and he'd blow some weed with you and go, yeah, get your feet off the seat. I'm
I
Andy
cannot
Frayne.
have been the only one who did not know that. I just thought that guy's name was Andy Frayne.
That's what I thought when I
They
came
still
out.
exist.
so
They just
too.
don't wear the costume.
I
Costumes
love the
is.
costume. It's good. It's a costume.
and the big shoes.
I'm
And
telling you, 30 years ago when I moved here and I heard Andy Frayne, I thought the same thing. I go, who's Andy Frayne?
Yeah. I don't know the history of who Andy Frayne, the original Andy Frayne was.
How did that start?
But in the
He's in jail.
70s, they were everywhere. They were like, you'd see these guys, they would all have the same uniform on and they would be at anything that took place. Like they would be at wrestling shows, they would be at the circus, they would be at ever concerts, they would blow weed and get loaded. It was great. It was fantastic. So we talk about
By the way, the Andy Frayne Company founded in 1924, 100 years ago.
I believe in
By WLS.
south side of Chicago. They were formed I want to say Burbank or something, and they were formed on the south side of Chicago.
All right, and that's available today. As
Yes,
you say,
that one
coincidentally.
that dropped today. The Nell Minow, and then the SNL podcasts drop on Wednesday. So
All right.
that's that show hasn't been funny in years, and the Nick D podcast, all at RadioMisfits.com.
The First Omen, Civil War, or is it Civil War Sting?
No, Civil War and then Sting. It's
Okay,
three.
This is missing a comma.
Yeah.
And don't tell Mom the babysitter's dead.
Yeah.
You'll talk about all those
Sure.
when we come back. Question of the day today, your favorite WLS memory. And you can leave it anywhere. I want to bring this up one more time because, Nick, I think you'd appreciate this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the grossest thing your partner does, but you accept it was actually yesterday's question of the day?
The grossest thing, your partner, as in life partner?
Yeah, I was going to ask your girlfriend. I said, we don't have that kind of time.
What, the grossest thing that I do that my girlfriend would say?
Yeah. But listen to this. I have so much respect for this listener.
Yeah.
Because this listener, Amy, wrote this, and she even put the pauses in the right places. This woman's a brilliant writer, and apparently it's true. Grossest thing your partner does, but you just accept it. Amy writes, the butt crack. I can't. I can't divorce the love of my life, the father of my kids, the person whom I can laugh and cry together, my life partner in sickness and health, good times and bad, over the fact that he will not pull up his pants. She continues, the crack is everywhere. Cute video of the kids, probably bending down at some point in the video with his crack to the camera. Skyping my parents, sure enough, he's in the background, picking something up off the floor, crack to camera. At the dog park, let him pick up a dog toy. Crack to the world, crack, 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 crack. She actually writes, crack, 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 crack. I give up on it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't bother me. I live with a butt crack. That's brilliant.
I live with a butt crack.
It's the best text I've ever seen.
It really is.
It's like it reminded me again of SNL.
Yeah.
Back with Lisa Lubner and Todd when Dan Aykroyd played the refrigerator repairman. That's right. And it was the first time a butt crack was ever shown on TV.
Right.
And it was a big deal. It was like, oh my God, they showed a butt crack on TV. And it went so far that you remember he used to, as the repairman, he would keep his pencil in his butt crack, if you remember. So that was a...
But there was some controversy because in 72, some people thought George McGovern was a butt crack. And turns out he was not. He was actually from South Dakota. At 7:51, let's talk movies.
Sure.
And where do you want to begin?
Do you want to talk about the one from last week that I really want people to see?
Yeah, go.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The First Omen. It's the best Omen movie ever made, without question. And It's terrifying. It's twisted. It's gory. It is as disturbing a horror movie as you'll see this year. And it was the biggest surprise of any movie I've seen this year. I went in with the lowest expectations because the Omen movies are stupid. But they're, like the first one, whatever, it's fine. But this one I went in with like the lowest expectations. And it is creepy and subversive and gross and awesome. And unfortunately, it came out on the heels of that stupid movie with Sydney Sweeney, that immaculate nun movie. Mm-hmm. And so you can't have like two nun horror movies in 2 weeks' time. And nobody's going to see The First Omen. And if you're a horror movie fan, it's a gift from above or below, however you want to look at it. And The First Omen, which came out last week, best horror movie of the year so far. So I wanted to mention that one because not a lot of people are seeing it, and it is better than any of those other stupid Omen movies.
Now, having said that, I didn't see it, but can I defend Sydney Sweeney in general for a second?
Yeah.
I think she's got potential to be a very good actress, and I've seen people go, she's just boobs. Well, her boobs are fantastic, but she shouldn't be penalized for that. Whatever skills you have, if they're featured and it gets you better parts and eventually you're able to show your stuff off, great.
Yeah.
So let's not penalize her for having fabulous boobs and give her a chance to be whoever she turns out to be.
She was good in this. She was good in an HBO film called Reality. She was very good in that. She's been bad in everything else I've seen her in. And she was terrible on SNL. Go back to SNL. And by the way, if she's like working on stuff that she wants to do, she produced the last two movies she was in, including this Immaculate and including that stupid rom-com that she did with that Glenn Powell guy. They both sucked. So
okay. Well, I haven't seen them. I'm just saying, let's not dismiss her because of her cleavage.
Yeah, I think
because we like her boobs.
Yeah.
Nick, I think we have a clip from The First Omen.
Okay.
Oh, good God almighty me. I think he's the Antichrist.
This is Brother Martin from Up in Smoke. The First Omen, I wanted to mention that. But the new ones that came out this week.
Yeah.
The big one is Civil War. This is Alex Garland's new movie. Alex Garland has made Ex Machina. He did Annihilation and a film called Men. He makes very weird sort of horror-adjacent movies that are really twisted and really, really disturbing. And this movie takes place in a fictionalized kind of future where there is a civil war and America is fighting itself. And Kirsten Dunst plays a photojournalist who is covering this civil war. And it's about this road trip that she goes on with another journalist and a young girl who wants to be a photojournalist as they travel through war-torn America. And it's about what would happen during a civil war and what would happen in it right now, presently, if we had a civil war, and how would it be covered by photojournalists. And it's an interesting idea, has some incredible sequences in it. But overall, Alex Garland kind of wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to kind of remind people of January 6th at times, and he wants to...
Does it get preachy?
No, it's not so much it's preachy. It's kind of half-assed in the way it's written. Like, there's really no... And also, the other thing is, by the way, I have to say this, the president... in this movie during the Civil War is Nick Offerman. So when you have Nick Offerman as your president, you're going to have a civil war. I could have told you that before I even saw the movie.
All he wants to do is make benches.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you
so
would think it'd be a comedy if it was
you
Nick
got
Offerman.
Nick Offerman playing, you got Nick Offerman playing the president. Clearly, there's going to be a civil war.
Right.
But there are great sequences in it. There's a lot of intensity. The performances are all good. Overall, I think it's his weakest and it's his most accessible movie. It's his least weird. This director, but I like his weird, crazy stuff more than this.
Okay.
Although there's great stuff in it, I just wouldn't recommend it. But people are, by the way, this is a very divisive movie. Some people really hate this movie and are very angry about it, and it's really causing quite a stir. So it's going to get people to talk.
But
There's
I
no
think it's a
question
reason
about
to see it then.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be better if it were a good movie, but
Well, yeah.
but there are things about it that are good. But overall, I mean, I don't know. If you're interested in seeing it, But and again, the acting. I mean, yes, Kirsten Dunst is amazing in it. She's great in everything. So.
Yeah,
and Jesse Plemons.
There's another reason to see it.
Jesse Plemons, who is her husband, he's got one scene in this movie, and he's absolutely terrifying, and it's unlike anything he's ever done.
Oh wow!
So there are things about it that I like, but compared to this guy's other work, which is much more weird and much more interesting,
Okay.
I think I'm still going to see it.
And there's one more, yeah?
Sting, which has nothing to do with the wrestler or the singer from the Police
Or the old Sting.
Or the soccer team.
The bee bites?
Yeah. No, it's about a spider from Mars, and it has nothing to do with Bowie. And it's a spider that comes in and crashes. An egg crashes into a tenement building, and a spider.
Oh, that old plot.
A little girl discovers this little spider and feeds him, and before you know it, he becomes giant and kills everybody in the tenement building. So it's about a giant spider terrorizing people in a tenement building in Brooklyn, and it's really bad. Really boring and really bad, and a great idea. And I like giant insects and giant. I love.
Yeah.
Can you isolate? I like giant insects. We could use that forever.
I like creatures that murder people in very violent ways.
And that.
This fails on all levels. So not good.
We
Is
can
this
use
based
that
on
later.
a true story?
Yeah.
That's why I wanted
Maybe
to
in a
bring it. It is
court
based on a
case.
true story. Yeah.
Based on a true story?
Yeah.
It's the first QAnon
It was
meeting.
when Nick when Nick Offerman was president. I don't know if you remember that or not. But
I do remember this.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
We mentioned your podcast. You got 2 of them. And
I
people
do.
should get those. From,
RadioMisfits.com.
But you also have your summer movie series.
Well, it's a full-on series now. Monthly,
Yeah.
my film club is back. And so it's called Nick's Picks. It's with Classic Cinemas. I'll be doing it at the Lake Theater in Oak Park, which is a beautiful facility.
Phenomenal. It's my. Was it your theater growing up?
It was when I
It was my theater growing
I saw a
up,
bunch
so,
of movies there. I've been there in a long time. I've been going back now, and the people at Classic Cinemas are kind enough to give me
They're the best.
once a month I
They're
can
the
program
best.
whatever I want.
How
So,
great is that?
May 8th, I'm showing Streets of Fire with Michael Pare, Diane Lane, and Willem Dafoe, which is a great action movie. In June, I'm showing Tommy, the Who from 1975. In case you've ever wanted to see Oliver Reed and Jack Nicholson sing, here's your chance. And if you'd like to see Anne Margaret roll around in baked beans, that's another beautiful thing.
And Margaret's rolling around in is fun.
Yep. July, I'm showing The Warriors, which is one of the greatest action movies of all time.
That is really, really.
And in August, I'm showing The China Syndrome with Jane Fonda, Jack Lemmon.
Wow. Okay.
And Michael Douglas. So those are the first 4 movies of the series. It's only $9 to get in, $7 for
great.
seniors and kids. It's the second Wednesday of each month. May 8th at the Lake Theater. Streets of Fire, one of the best movies of the 80s. Incredible action movie. That's my first one. And it's at the Lake Theater. And you can go to classiccinemas.com/Nick.
And
Get your tickets now.
ClassicCinemas.com/Nick.
Nick.
John, you and I will vouch for that because we do stand-up shows with those guys.
Oh, we do.
They do amazing work.
It is. They're so good. They're
And
so
the
good.
length-
Michael Schindler's wonderful.
Michael Schindler, I've been working with him, closely on this, and they're allowing me to pick whatever movie I want, and
great is
I'm
that?
really thrilled about it. And you don't get to see Streets of Fire on the big screen.
That's cool.
Very often, and it's a really, really good. You guys remember the song "I Can Dream About You"?
Yeah.
That's in that movie. That's what and one of Willem Dafoe's first movies, and he's the bad guy. It's a great movie.
By the way, you have a nice singing voice.
Oh well, thank you.
Yeah. What was
Thank
that?
you.
Was that Townsend?
Well, Robert Townsend,
but
sang
he
it.
didn't sing
No,
it.
Dan Hartman sang.
Dan
that.
Hartman
Yeah,
sang
I mean, you
it,
remember
but-
Dan Hartman?
I do.
Dan Hartman. Everybody thought Dan Hartman was black. Because
Correct.
because of this from the movie, it's a group of 4 black singers do the song.
Right. Turns out he's not.
So when he showed up, I remember he showed up on like Midnight Special, and people went, "What's a white guy doing on the stage?"
Yeah, I got booed like Wild Cherry the first time they play that funky music. Yeah. Not a good days. Nick, thank you, man.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it as always.